Hello, welcome to the Cinema Savvy Movie Podcast, the channel for film reviews, discussions and everything in between. I'm Chris Garner, joined with my co-host George Aldridge, and this is our midweek film club show. Basically how this show works is that we nominate a film that ties in with whichever film we reviewed in our main show. This week it was Tomorrowland. So this week I picked Galaxy Quest, and my reason for that was you've got your sci-fi angle and it's all about transporting someone to a new futuristic world, and it's sort of a family comedy as well. It's kind of what Tomorrowland was. So yeah, let's just get straight into it.
Man, where in the hell is he? An hour and a half late?
They're gonna start eating each other out there.
Whew.
Your commander is on deck.
For years,
Never give up. Never surrender.
the cast of Galaxy Quest have played the same parts.
Never give up.
By Grabthar's hammer, by the sons of Warvan, I shall avenge you. I won't say that stupid line one more time.
Their careers were bravely going
By Grabthar's hammer.
nowhere
What a savings.
until
You are our last hope.
their biggest fans
I must say that standing here in your presence is the greatest honor we could ever have hoped to achieve.
requested a command performance.
We have studied every facet of your missions and strategies.
We are actors, not astronauts.
You will save us.
That was a hell of a thing.
But the thing I love about Galaxy Quest is the whole satire on Star Trek.
Yeah, this is what I enjoy most. I think I'm gonna say it from the forefront. I do not like Star Trek. I like
I'm the same.
I like the two J.J. Abrams films I saw, but I only saw them because I had to for the release of Star Wars. So that's out of the bag. That's the first thing I have to say. But yeah, I enjoyed it. Well, like most of it. There's a few bits where it kind of delves into Star Trek too much, so I was like, oh, for fuck's sake.
Well, that's just down to us, isn't it? Like, we were talking about this before, but films such as Fanboys.
Oh, I love Fanboys.
Like, because it's Star Wars, we love it. I don't know if we love it equally, because I mean, I love Galaxy Quest regardless of my thoughts on Star Trek, but it's because it's got those references that we get because we like Star Wars more.
Yeah, I mean, also the comparison is that in Fanboys you have the cameos, and we can't really turn this into Fanboys on why it's better than Galaxy Quest. But I like the concept of it. I mean, it's funny that you've got the cast at a convention. Obviously, I've been to a convention or two before, so you kind of actually come across similar things. So it kind of sums up. They're all there signing their autographs, and then this kid comes up to one of the main cast, and he's dressed up as him, does the hand symbol, and then he's about to say his line, and Alan Rickman, who is superb in this as normal, he's kind of like, he just signs it and gives it back. Then the next guy comes up, says it again, he signs it, gives him back, and he's just getting so aggravated. And I thought, it's moments like that, I thought this is hilarious, because the actors probably go through that stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, George Takei, who was obviously he was in the original series of Star Trek, he said that he loves this film, but it's quite an accurate representation of what it was like being an actor during that time, with how the amount of fans you had, and being on set and the kind of actor relationship with each other, how some were quite egotistical, others wanted to be more of a serious actor, because I think that Leonard Nimoy had that problem. He didn't want to be typecast as Spock. I wanted to go more into serious acting.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because it has the perfect Leonard Nimoy William Shatner dynamic. The Spock's the number two. Alan Rickman's playing the character Alexander, who plays the equivalent of Spock, and he's kind of got this funny sort of head thing where it looks like his brain's sort of on display, and he's quite clearly a serious actor, and he's blatantly upset that Jason, who is played by Tim Allen, who is the William Shatner of this film, he's got his own table, he's loving it, the fans love him more, he's the leader, and you have this dynamic which is so obvious in the Star Trek universe.
Yeah.
And I think it was really enjoyable to watch because I can't sit through Star Trek, but I've always understood that dynamic was there, and it's just the comedy moments that they have together, where there's the scene where Tim Allen's guy, he falls off and he's taken away by the little children, monster aliens, and then you have Alan Rickman that's in the place like, he's always trying to be the lead guy, get the role, and I thought it's little things like that which I really enjoyed about the film.
And I know we spoke about Star Trek, and we're probably going to incur the wrath of like thousands of Star Trek fans here, but you know, all the bits of commentary in the film, I do get it. I get where it's coming from and the aspects it's kind of riffing on the original Star Trek show. But I just think it's such a cleverly written script, and the humour is some of the best in like a comedy film I think I've seen for this kind of genre. I remember when I was originally going to see this came out in 1999. I can't remember what film I was going to see at the cinema at the time, but the film I wanted to see was fully booked and I couldn't get in. This was the only thing playing at the same time. So I went into this film completely cold. I hadn't seen any trailers. I mean, this film did double its budget, but I don't think it got much marketing power. So I'd heard literally nothing about it at the time. And I just came out and I loved it. I loved everything about it. Even without growing up with Star Trek, I think it's still a solid movie on its own. It's a solid, fun, family space adventure movie. But obviously, if you're older and you've seen Star Trek, you've got that added level of satire and commentary on it, which I think works really well.
Yeah, 'cause what also I find interesting about this is the first review where only one of us has seen the film up till yesterday. Yeah. So you just said that you saw it as a cinema when you were a lot younger. I think I saw 10-15 minutes on film a few years ago, and obviously I saw the full thing yesterday. So it's a completely different dynamic, which I think is helped propel our reactions to it. But I think what the film does, I think it is a success. I mean, the Star Trek fans, there's a lot to say about the fans for a start, because I think that they were hating on Into Darkness a lot, and they did a poll, and I think this was voted the 7th best Star Trek film, although it's not.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, although it was a hate vote, it was quite funny to see A, this was included, and B, it's actually quite high up.
I think it has got to the point with this film where it has sort of become a cult favourite. And that I think that just shows, like, with that reaction, even from the Star Trek fans.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't take the piss out of the film.
Oh no!
It's you're right. It's a proper satire towards it. It's not a. It's how it works. I mean, you'd see each character's equivalent on screen permanently, and you even have the fan base. You've got the character. I think he's called Guy, which sums up how Vegas played by the amazing Sam Rockwell.
Oh, he's so good in this movie.
I mean, Sam Rockwell turns everything into gold. Apparently, although Poltergeist film's clearly terrible, the new one, apparently he's the best thing in it, which is very easy to believe.
Yeah.
What he's called a Questarian, which is this Galaxy Quest equivalent of a Trekkie, and he's hosting this Galaxy Quest convention. It's like, oh my god, I was in a Star Trek. Oh no, sorry, I was in a Galaxy Quest TV episode. I was the guy that died, and you know he loves the fact he's in it.
He's basically the equivalent of a red shirt, isn't he?
Yeah, I think is that the engineer people?
The red shirts, it's like a trope in Star Trek. They always went with the main crew on missions, and the red shirts would always be the first ones to die.
Ah, right. Okay, yeah, definitely. So he plays with the fact that he's an extra that died and he loved it. But then when they get transported to space of the actual Galaxy Quest real life universe, he's like the comedy relief. Because every single time something happens, he's like, oh my god, I'm gonna die. And it's like, I die in it, so I have to die in this. And that it comes back. It doesn't slap it in your face every 10 minutes, but it's when Sam Rockwell comes on screen and talks about it, it's definitely one of the standout moments each time.
I was going to say, it doesn't get to the point where it becomes incredibly annoying. It's not like the Leo character from Transformers Revenge of the Fallen. Because it has that level of satire underneath it, and you realise what it's kind of doing a commentary on and riffing on, then you can kind of get behind it more. And it's I know what scene you're talking about. It's that scene where they're travelling down to the rock planet, and he's just going hysterical because he thinks he's not going to make it out of it. He's saying that I'm not even important enough to have a last name.
Yeah.
No one can think of his last name. But it's just his attitude as well at the start. You know, he's got this like real sort of rock star persona just because he's been in like halfway through one episode of the entire show. And he thinks he has the right to like sit on the table with the rest of the actors on the same level.
Yeah, and it's interesting that his character's called Guy, which obviously is a real name, but it's so vague because it just sums him up as an extra on the set. But I just love the dynamic he plays and the fact that you have this fan put into the actual film. Because let's be honest, if we were put in the Star Wars universe, we would probably be shitting it at the sight of a TIE fighter or something like that.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
So you get your Star Trek spoof, but then you get the fan involved, which is the most important the most important part, which is why it works. And I think Sam Rockwell, he's one of my favourite actors, and it's just great because I didn't even know who was in it. I think I text you straight away saying, "Oh my life, it's Sam Rockwell,"
did, yeah.
And I was loving it straight away. That had me more involved than I would have been.
Well, I think we should get into the characters more, but before we do, in case anyone hasn't seen this film and kind of interested in seeing it, we'll just run down sort of the basic plot if you haven't got it already. What it is, it's Galaxy Quest was this old sci-fi TV show like Star Trek. It's these really out of work actors who are kind of clinging on to the fame from that. They want to try and break away from it and go into more serious roles, but as was the case with most of these things, and you see this with some Star Wars actors, you've got the typecasting. So they're at this convention, they're down on the luck, and Tim Allen's character gets transported to space by real-life aliens who believe that the show are historical documents and they're actual facts. So they've replicated everything from the show and believe that they are a real space crew. And it's kind of, they get caught up in this whole turmoil with this evil alien called Zaris who they have to stop. And it's a really funny idea for a plot, and I think they tie it in well to the satire, but the characters in this are fantastic. We'll start off with the main one. Tim Allen plays a character called Jason Nesmith, and we've briefly hit on it before, but he really hits the William Shatner type persona. I mean, the bit where he's on the rock planet later on in the film, and he's just doing all these over-the-top action rolls all over the floor. He tries to take his shirt off at every moment he can. And it's like that real macho kind of appearance, and Alan Rickman calls him out on it loads of times, and Sigourney Weaver.
Oh, I know, and one of my slight issues that Tim Allen is to me a lot of people Buzz Lightyear.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It's the fact that you had the arrogant toy spaceman playing the Captain Kirk, and it was so funny to watch because he said about the roles. I didn't really pick up on it till like the final scene, where at the convention he just does a roll and shoots someone because he can. And it's kind of like there was no need, but it's funny that he does it.
And that's what I love, like it's a sign of a solid screenplay. Each storyline that's posed in this has a payoff at the end.
Yeah, each minor character always has a sort of internal issue going on, and every single one of them gets it finalised, which is great because it's a satisfying ending for it. Rather than asking loads of questions, it starts and finishes as a good satire. Yeah,
so like you just said there, where he keeps doing this forward roll all over the place and everyone calls him out on how stupid it is, actually ends up saving their lives. And there's another example with Alan Rickman's character, plays, his show's character is called Dr. Lazarus. Basically, this guy's past is that he was a serious actor. I think he says he played Richard III. And he wants to get back to proper acting, but he's really down on his luck and depressed that this is the only character he's known for. And he hates saying his famous line, and I guess this ties in with sort of Leonard Nimoy with the whole live long and prosper thing. And I can imagine how frustrating that must be as an actor. It's something like, by Grapthar's hammer you shall be avenged, or something like that. And he refuses to say the line. But by the end of the film, and this is a sort of spoiler alert for a film, one of the Thermians dies, who he got quite close to, and he delivers this monologue, the line he didn't want to say from the show, and it means so much to this one Thermian alien. And again, that's another storyline that, gets tied off at the end in a really cool way, I think.
Yeah, and what's interesting about the catchphrase is that, you're right, the actors would be pissed off with it, especially a stage actor, I think. the one I thought of most was Alec Guinness for Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Oh yeah.
Because as much as he made a lot of money off it, he didn't like it at all. Okay, he probably didn't mind it, but I think the issue with him was that everyone forgot his other roles. I mean, he was a very respectable actor at the time. I think he'd won Oscars, awards. He was in the British House of Cards TV show, and then everyone knew him as Obi-Wan. And you understand where they're coming from, but he plays off it so well in this, because by the end of it, he has turned into his character. And I think there's this fantastic scene when they're all eating dinner, and the Thermians are like, "Oh yeah, we've designated the food to your locations from the show. So you've got Tim Allen with the steak, Tommy with chips, and then you've got Dr. Lazarus with these actual alien insect things." And it's just the little moments like that are just fantastic to watch.
And I think the chemistry between all the actors in the film really shine through, especially with Sigourney Weaver in it as well. And obviously, she's just one of the best actresses out there, and obviously she's after Alien and Aliens, one of the best sci-fi action heroines of all time. So I think casting her played a real big. I think those roles played a real big part in why she was cast in this.
Yeah, because in Ripley, you've got the first feminist action star, take on the aliens, get off her, you bitch, all that. And then you get her in this, and she's just this really dumb blonde character. Yeah. And then she's on the computer, and she's everything the computer says she repeats to them, or vice versa. And it's just kind of this running gag. And she's like, "Yes, I'm even saying what the computer says now because I have to." And then I thought she was great in it because you didn't necessarily need Sigourney Weaver. But it's the fact you have the credibility of Ripley in this parody of sci-fi, and I thought it was great. And then she had this kind of half love interest with Jason, who's played by Tim Allen. And what's good, it doesn't fully develop it. You kind of get bits and bobs. So
it doesn't completely get in the way of the film, does it?
No, and I don't really know Star Trek enough, but I don't think Captain Kirk. I know he has a wife in it. But she's not a part of the main crew, whereas Sigourney Weaver's more of the I've forgotten her name. She plays Gamora in Guardians of the Galaxy. That's what she is to Spock.
She's kind of the equivalent of Uhura, isn't she?
Yeah.
From Star Trek.
Yeah, that's the one.
Again, I don't know if Captain Kirk had any relationship with Uhura. I think didn't they? And if any Star Trek fans are watching this, you can correct me or send your abuse down below. But I think they had a kiss in the show, which was quite controversial at the time because obviously it was an interracial kiss.
I think it was the first ever one on television I read, which was a big deal in a positive way.
Yeah.
Which was great. So you hear stories that Star Trek set the standard for a lot of stuff. And there's this I was reading a book and it was talking about George Lucas. He went to a convention. This is kind of unrelated, but it's cool. He went to a convention. He was guest hosting, and then they brought out on stage the creator of Star Trek. And apparently, because George Lucas was a big fan, he was shell shocked, and apparently, his face dropped, and he was this nervous, sort of giddy person. When you would argue be the two founders of modern sci-fi. So that's a cool little story. I've got loads of them. Don't worry. It's unrelated to this, but it was awesome.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to think what other characters got rid. Oh, if you want to talk about the aliens for a bit, because I know you've told me that this is one of the biggest problems you had with the film.
Yeah, I mean, so Star Trek's exploring stuff, which I always got bored with, and you get introduced to this alien race, and you kind of know they're odd at the start because they have this really annoying voice, and I know they're aliens, they can't really pronounce stuff properly, and they're called Thermians, and that's basically because they're termite. So they pose as human beings, but the reality is they kind of look like mushed.
Like squid things, really, aren't they?
Yeah, and it's kind of like, oh, for God's sake. And then they work to this level where it's fantastic. They create, or they believe they're humans. And they've kind of got, they look more like robots, I think, than aliens, which is one of my minor issues. But it's kind of you get very bored of them very quickly. They would have been great for 2 or 3 lines as a different race, but to be the main race in which this film's based off, it was kind of like, for God's sake, can Cyrus actually kill them all?
See, I can totally get why you think that of the aliens, and I will agree that towards the end of the film they do get a bit grated, especially when you've had like near enough 2 hours of them. But I never hated them really as much as you, I don't think. I don't know whether that was a fact because I saw the film growing up, so that's kind of had some kind of reason as to my thoughts behind it. But they weren't Jar Jar Binks level annoying for me. They were just kind of quirky because they're aliens, and I think you needed that because you wanted that kind of fish out of water story when the crew first go aboard and everything's completely weird and surreal.
Yeah, they worked to that levels, but it's the fact they had to keep coming back to them, and it would have been nice to have seen 2 or 3 different races because we get the villainous race who look a lot like orcs. And then it's actually just these guys. You get a bit of a backstory that they're all what's left of their planet and they want to kill them. But it's kind of like we want to see a bit more. We briefly get it with the little kid vampire things.
I love that scene.
To be fair, that's the point where I got a bit bored of it. But it was a funny gag with them where I think that they're all crowding around the injured one, and they're like, "Oh, it's so cute." And then Samrak was like, "Did you guys not see the episode?" And then they just like tear into them and start eating it, which was funny to its level. But I'd like to have seen sort of more of that because they kind of disappear after a minute or two.
See, I can kind of get why you probably think that's where the film starts slowing down because that's really where the crew on board, they know the situation they're in, and it's more the space adventure rather than straight up satire as it was at the very beginning of the film. But I still think there's a decent level of it. I mean, as you said, the bit where he said, "Didn't you see the episode?" That's the bit where Tim Allen's rolling all over the place. And really, Guy there is sort of our voice because he's seen the show as a fan. So he knows all the tropes, he knows all the stereotypes and what usually happens. So I think there's still a high level of that commentary throughout it, even when the plot, gets going and they're having to take down the villain, Saris.
Yeah, I understand it's that point, but I think the satire is what makes this. And again, this comes down to, I think, my natural opinion of Star Trek, where I'm not really up for the sort of adventure exploring stuff. And I understand what it's in here, and I can appreciate a lot of people will like it. But me as an individual, I think that was just my natural switch off point. Like I'm sure it's funny to a lot of people. But for me, it was kind of like, oh no, I'm not liking this. I just wanted to have seen a bit more from that point. But I think it might work in its favour. I'll look back at this obviously in a few months. I might appreciate it more or less. It was kind of, as a satire, it doesn't chuck it in your face too much, which I think plays to its advantage. So it's a scene that works, and in all honesty, if you're going to do satire of Star Trek, you have to explore space. So it's fair play for putting that in rather than just have a film set on board a space station. Although it was its strongest point, you had to go to another planet to do something.
And I do think it does get quite inventive. I do like the alien designs. I think the CGI actually still really holds up well, but and I know I bang on about this in nearly every review we do, but it's the balance between practical and CGI. You have CGI for your little race of aliens and your gigantic rock monster, but then you also have practical effects for the Thermians when they're in their proper alien form and they look like squids. There's a thing he fights in the second act of the film called a pig lizard or something. That's all practical. And I think we should talk about the villains a bit as well, because I think Saris in this, he's sort of a stock bad guy, but he's just so cool.
Oh, I really liked him because you kind of introduced to him. He looks a bit like Killer Croc out of the Arkham games, and then he's just this like pure evil. I don't think it's clear why he wants to kill them. He just seems like some kind of like warlord that's just started war on them. And which is great,
pretty much,
because they introduced this villainous villain, and then he's got these moments of comedy where he's threatening the crew, and Tim Allen wants the feed cut, but Sigourney Weaver doesn't know how, And then he's like, "Oh, I've dealt with this guy. He's as he's as stupid as he looks."
Yeah.
And then
stupid as he is ugly or something. That.
That's the one.
Yeah.
And then you just clock on a few seconds later that Cyrus is on the other end of it still, and he kind of like banters back with him very briefly, and then just sets missiles out. So I thought that played out really well, and it was an interesting villain because it would have been very easy for them to have done a Khan type figure.
Yeah.
But you just felt that we finally had an extra alien race, although they look a lot like the Ninja Turtles.
And it's kind of interesting as well that the inside of the ship, I wonder if J.J. Abrams took any sort of inspiration from it, because to me it looks a lot like the inside of Nero's ship from Star Trek 2009.
Yeah, it was all sort of like cloggy, wired everywhere,
green, and
yeah, and it was great because I think when he came on at times, you're like, yes, he's a very good villain. I think it works in their favour. But then with me, because I'm always a fan of villains, I appreciate a better villain. I do a better hero.
Yeah, same.
It was kind of like, oh, these guys are gonna die, but let's make it worse. So he like suffocates them by taking away the oxygen to the thermites. Then this comes back to me not liking the aliens, where I really wanted him to kill them all. But it's I think I sound a bit harsh with it. It's mainly just like two minor niggles. I really enjoyed this film, and I think that there's a lot of it in its favour. And as a fan of sort of sci-fi, sort of the convention type stuff, I can like appreciate it and laugh at that. I know you've got a lot to say of the music as well. I wasn't, because that's an important part of sci-fi. When I look at it, you look at Star Wars, you think John Williams, everything he's done. Each film's their own individual. You can look at the likes of Close Encounters, E.T., so on, and then you picked out the music on this specifically.
Yeah, the main theme on this, I mean, it kicks off the film. I think it's a really, really solid soundtrack all the way through this film. David Newman did the music, and the main theme's kind of the bombastic sort of space theme you'd expect from stuff like Star Wars and obviously Star Trek, and it does have those kind of whimsical Star Trek motifs to it. But even in some of the more heartfelt scenes in it, which I think the film balances really well. I mean, when it hits the more dramatic scenes in it does it really well, and the music complements that really well. And then you've got obviously your action scene, which I don't know if you got this, but there's a scene where they go through this. It's sort of like an asteroid field, but they're like mines in space that blow up, and it really reminded me of Empire Strikes Back with the asteroid chase.
Yeah, with the asteroid field, when it first came on, it reminded me a lot of Empire Strikes Back, because there was this chase scene, and the villain didn't want to go in at the start, whereas obviously Darth Vader kind of just went for it straight away. And then they have this chase, and the irony you get with this Galaxy Quest scene is that the pilot, I think, is it Tommy, he's not that good at flying, because obviously his character's grown up, and so is he.
Yeah.
So it was similar to Empire, but again, I didn't notice the music as much as you did, but I did notice a lot of the similarities.
For me, it was just the main theme, really. I think it's a great sci-fi action theme, and it's a soundtrack. I love soundtracks that do this, where, and you really don't get it in modern films now. They'll use the same theme throughout, so every time a heroic moment happens, they'll play the theme, and you associate it with that. And this is one of my problems with like modern day superhero themes. They don't really have that continuity with the themes.
No,
but in this film they do, and these are the kind of films that I love.
I was going to say, but it's almost typical of sci-fi that, Star Wars Binary Sunset plays throughout all three films.
Exactly.
And then it works well in its favour, and again, you're right about the superhero stuff. The only one in recent years I've thought of that bears any resemblance is the Batman trilogy of the Hans Zimmer.
But the thing is, he never had one concrete theme, did he? There was like sort of three variations that would like play, that would alternate in and out. There was never one main consistent Batman theme, I didn't think.
I think it was mainly the notes. I think the main track could be Molossus, that's what a lot of people say,
yeah.
But it's kind of the gist of it was always put in. But yeah, you're right with the music stuff. It does. It's starting to come back to me without explaining it badly. that whenever something happened, it was the same tone that was heard over. But I think I'm naturally so acquainted to stuff like that now, where I didn't notice it as much as I would have, say, a year or two ago. And I think because I don't know the film as well as, I just didn't really clock on.
Well, this again, you mentioned this at the start. This was your first time seeing it, so that's fair enough. But even in the sort of calmer, more dramatic moments, like the scene that comes to mind is where Tim Allen tells, is it Mathazar, is it? The leader of the Thermians? He explains that it was actually a show and it wasn't historical, factual documents. And then Mathazar comes to the realization and he starts crying. The music in that bit's actually really good, and I think Tim Allen shows his more dramatic chops in scenes like that.
Yeah, because you've got the cocky Captain Kirk sort of stuff going on, and then that is the standout scene when he has to tell him, and it's all quieting down, and then what kind of kills it was the bloody alien. And then I think that's just me not getting behind the alien stuff, but you could tell that Tim Allen was really going for it in that scene, and it works well to his favour.
Yeah, I think what the thing is with the aliens is kind of be the last thing I say on it is they were kind of childlike, weren't they? And sort of, I understand why you dislike them, definitely. Like, I get that, but I don't know. I found them okay. I found them kind of funny.
I think they're to get like sort of easy laughs. I mean, it might be one of them. I'm just gonna put it out there. It might be a sort of similar thing to Gungans, where you might have liked it a bit when you're a bit younger rather than now.
Yeah.
But I loved the whole concept that he had to break it to them as well, that it wasn't a show. But then you do get this fantastic moment of comedy at the end where the whole speech, the Thermians think that he lied to Cyrus saying they're not actors when actually they were. No, yeah. So he basically lied. I thought that was hilarious. I really didn't expect that to happen.
But the film kind of ends where they're starting a new series of the show.
Yeah.
I think it was called The Journey Continues or something like that. But all of the aliens in it play a role. So surely they'd know it was actually a show again at the end.
They might do. It's one of them that if they ever get the historical documents, or if there's any sequels, maybe they'll find out about it. But one of my favourite parts of that is when Sam Rockwell's character Guy is like introducing Guy, and they've given him his surname, which I think is like Fleeman. So it was really cool, and you could see him all cocky on the set, and I thought that was a great little payoff to his character acts. Now he's part of the main crew. He's got a surname. He's part of them, and it was great fun, I thought.
And one thing I actually wanted to bring up about this film, because I don't think you knew this, originally it was going to be an R-rated comedy, and it was going to be a lot more risque, and there was going to be a lot more language in it. The scene that's often mentioned is, where Tim Allen and Sigourney Weaver are trying to get to the Omega-13 at the end, and they run into those kind of crusher things that they need to get past?
Yeah.
Sigourney Weaver says, screw that, and goes to run away. If you look at her mouth, it's actually dubbed, because she originally said, fuck that.
Oh, did she?
Yeah, if you watch that scene again, it's really kind of badly dubbed. And I think I've heard rumours that, I don't know if there was an R-rated cut made available of this, or it must have been a studio thing that they didn't want to, give it the R-rated so they could appeal more to the kid-to-family audience. But yeah, it was originally going to be a lot more sort of adult.
Yeah, I could kind of... Nice an R-rated cut, I could kind of see it as a sort of kick-ass type, where it's a parody that's taken itself serious and reverting back to the parody type. And I think it could have worked, but I think because Star Trek's such a sort of family-friendly show, it might have hampered its satirical take on it. But I think it plays well as sort of PG-13, the film it is.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think the tone they originally went for is funny, but I think, and we got to remember this came out in '99. Now with language, films, even PG films, are a lot more liberal with the language. So I think if they'd have used the one F-bomb there, it would have still been a hell of a lot more funnier. I mean, you look at films such as X-Men First Class, where they get one use of the F-word, and that is still like one of the best uses of that and the cameo in X-Men First Class. So I think if they'd had a moment like that, it would have been like a really hysterical moment, considering there's no other language in the film. But I can get why they've done it if that would have, pushed them over into a 12A or whatever it would be.
Yeah, I could see it working, and then it's one of them where the F-bombs are so. I mean, I said at the start of this, didn't I? I swore straight off. It's such a sort of commercial thing now where even in 12A films you're allowed to swear. I think you're allowed to say the F word once. You can say shit once, and I think you can't say the C word. I think that's the one rule. I think that hits it to 15 straight away, because I think Americans are a lot tighter on that than they are in England.
I think the first kind of PG film that I saw with language in, I think it's PG anyway, I might be wrong. I remember seeing it in the cinema and being genuinely shocked, was Bruce Almighty. So I think it must have been around perhaps the early 2000s where, our tolerances started coming down a bit and we could start adding that in. But I think it would be interesting to see an R-rated cut of Galaxy Quest, but as you said, I think the tone they settled on just worked fine for it.
Yeah, and you get these little bits where Sauer always has he beheads one of his crew members, doesn't he? And he's just carrying around his head in a spike. But obviously, because he's a green alien, you can get away with that type of blood. So I could have seen it working, because that worked fantastic. That was hilarious when he said that. It's like, oh, it's because he predicted your move wrong or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's the little things that it was good fun. I definitely want to see an R-rated cut of that.
I don't know if it was actually ever filmed fully. That's the only thing, or if it was originally going to be that, and then they kind of backpedaled it at the last minute. But I mean, if shots were filmed where there was language, there must be a cut out there somewhere of all the original footage. But I think there's been, in terms of the film overall, there's been talks that a sequel may happen. I think the cast would definitely all come back for it, but it's just, where would you take it after this? I think Galaxy Quest works as a film on its own. I don't think it particularly needs a sequel to carry on. I think it's found an audience. It's kind of a cult film at this point, and just leave it as a standalone. I don't think if you brought a sequel out now, many people would go and see it. I don't think it'd, bring out a massive turnout at the box office.
No, it'd be similar to Fanboys, where I think it would peak after it comes out. You'd get a bit of a cult following, but to bring a film out of this caliber, I think it would kind of ruin the first one, because it works so well for what it is.
And I mean, they've already talked about the commentary on older type Star Trek things, so it'd be, where do you go from here? Because you'd still have to keep it with that level of satire and that meta nature to it. So would it be like the concept of reboots? Maybe their characters have been recast as new ones, but then it would be like, how would you transfer that into space? So I don't think it's worth doing at all. I think they should just leave it, because it's still, I think personally, it's still a solid watch. I would definitely recommend seeing it if you haven't seen it already. If you're a lover of sci-fi, if you definitely love Star Trek and you've never seen this movie, check it out. But even without all the commentary and the satire in it, I think it still stands up on its own as a solid family sci-fi adventure film.
Yeah, definitely. You don't have to watch Star Trek to like this. I mean, I first saw bits and bobs of this before I'd ever seen Star Trek, and I kind of loved it because it's such a mainstream thing now. Like, it's quite cool to be a geek these days. So sort of having that convention dynamic would apply to a lot more people than it would have in '99. But then again, thinking of that, the way it could work as a sequel, you could have this sort of modern audience, but definitely don't want them to do that. But I really enjoyed it, and then I'm happy you picked it, because it was a funny film, and it worked really well, and it kind of makes me want to watch Star Trek ever so slightly, which is an achievement in itself.
DreamWorks Pictures presents Tim Allen, Sigourney Weaver, Alan Rickman, Galaxy Quest.
You're just gonna have to kill it.
Well, go for the mouth, the throat, his vulnerable spots.
It's a rock. It doesn't have any vulnerable spots.
But yeah, I hope we get more films in Film Club get recommended that, either one of us haven't seen, because it'd be nice, because although we enjoy reviewing films that we've both seen and we can talk about stuff we love in it, it's kind of interesting to get someone's fresh opinion on it that's never seen the film. So it'd be cool if we get more films like this in the future.
I hope we might do. I've got my choice on Sunday. So on Monday's main show, we're gonna try something else. We've got The Rock's new film San Andreas coming out.
Mm-hmm.
We're both not going to be reviewing this, for a few reasons why. We're going to try something new. So we really enjoyed doing our top 10 original films, which was more of a 2 top 5 list. So
yeah,
we've expanded on this, and our Monday show is going to be our top 10 films of all time. So we'll have 2 lists of 10, and it's not going to be what's the best made film like a Casablanca. It's going to be our favourite, so this could be anything from like Kingsman to Star Wars to South Park. You never know; it could be anything. So it's going to be a really fun one, and we think it'll be slightly longer again, but it's going to be far more interesting because we both don't know our top 10s. We each know our two or three.
And it'll be a good chance to like let the viewers kind of get to know what other films we're into and a bit about our movie history.
Yeah, and this is all leading on to a new profile. So we've just set up a Letterboxd account for Cinema Savvy, and for those who don't know what Letterboxd is, it's not a social network for film fans. What you do, you go on, you can get followers, you can write reviews, people will see it. You have a watch list, so you hit a button for every film you've ever seen. So if you're going to do it properly, it'd probably take forever, but we're sticking to the stuff we've done as a channel. Then you get lists on there, so we're going to be updating it with films we've reviewed. So Galaxy Quest is on there now, and it's a really fun it's a really fun site to be a part of, and I've used it for about a year now, and it's great fun. I really enjoy it, and the benefits of it as well. You get to chat to new people, stuff like that. So that's one, and we can be found on there at cinema_savvy, or you can just search Cinema Savvy and we'll come up straight away.
And the link for that will be in the description, along with some other places you can find us at. We're on Facebook, if you search it, facebook.com/cinemasavvy, or on Twitter at cinema_savvy, or if you just prefer to listen to our audio reviews, you can find us on iTunes if you just search Cinema Savvy Movie Podcast, or on Podomatic at cinemasavvy.podomatic.com. Bringing a lot more videos out now, and it'd be nice to get the audience going. And our main show Monday, as you just said, will be our top 10 list of our favourite films of all time. So until then, thanks for listening.